live other places, so we'll give that a few seconds as well. But welcome. My name's Greg Lothian. I'll give you a bit of about my background in a few seconds. But really the biggest thing, the campaign that we're starting right now, one of the things that's been my biggest passion for a very long time, and the last year we've been working really hard to really attack this, is to solve what is in our industry and globally the biggest problem in health. And when I tell people that we're working on the biggest problem in health, you get a lot of, oh yeah, that's a pretty big statement. And really what it comes from is there's research out there with our Harvard School of Medicine and published in the British Journal of Medicine. And what they talk about is the link between strength and the link between strength and the risk for all causes of mortality. So it's one of the only things that you can measure empirically that affects all causes of mortality. So it's really, if the biggest problem is health is strength, then how we're taking on this problem head on is with sorry, I'm getting another message. Yeah, okay. What we're taking on is adherence to strength training. Because if we can improve adherence to strength training, then we can improve, of course, results that we get from clients, which boosts relationship with clients and client retention. And we can have a bigger impact on global health and the people that we care about. So that's really what we're doing, and that's what this part is all about. For those of you that signed up and didn't see, because I don't know if it was explicit in the registration part, but this is a 3-part series. So there's going to be a lot of information that I want to share. And feel free to share this registration and the post recordings and all that sort of stuff with anybody, because I think it could really help a lot of practitioners build greater businesses, have a greater impact on the world. And I've been working like this for a long time. A lot of the stuff that I'm sharing today is really just how I work. And it's taken me, I think I'm in my 28th year in this industry. I started at a gym in 1995, summer of 1995. So been doing this a long time and struggled with adherence through my career as well. And so let's get right into it, and we will, let's just get going. So the elephant in our room, our health industry, is adherence to strength training. And if you talk to anybody in our industry about how much their clients actually stick to the program, you get all kinds of answers. I've been doing this for a couple of years concertedly, talking to health practitioners about their businesses and about adherence and how it was going and all that. And we get everything from it's a them problem to I don't know what to do with this anymore. I have clients that really aren't sticking to the program, and I don't know how to turn them around. And the thing is, we've been talking about this for my entire career, and over that period of time, it really hasn't changed. If you look at the stats, it really hasn't changed a lot. But over the period of my career, one of the things that has happened is we've turned to measuring everything. We measure sleep, we measure stress, we measure hydration, we measure cardiovascular conditioning, we measure O2 sat, we measure blood lactate, all of these things. The biggest thing, the thing that has the highest impact in our industry and globally to health around the world, is strength. We're not really measuring it properly. And this is something that's why we want to address this. Because if we can have impact personally I would love to have a massive global impact on the health of the world. Our world has changed. We don't move as much as we need to, and there's all kinds of problems which we've seen for years and years and years. And if we can just get people to stick to whatever program it is, whether it's in rehab, exercise rehab, injury rehab, whether it's for fitness, whether it's for performance, if we can get people to stick long term to these things, then we can have a huge impact on the world. So the first thing we want to really understand, okay, I just want to check this. Can everybody hear me properly? Because I'm getting an indication that maybe I'm not talking loud enough. Somebody could just put in the chat, if you can, put in the chat that if you can hear me. That would be great. If not, I would rather solve this problem right away than go on and have you guys not being able to hear me the whole time. Okay. Let's do this. The volume's perfect. Okay, so I'm getting that from the outside. And the screen's big enough. Everybody can read what's on the screen. Is that, I want to make sure that, oh, here we go. How about now? How's the screen now? Is that better? Is that better for everybody? Oh, but I'm too small. Yes. Yeah, you don't you don't necessarily need. You want to see me? Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, but I can only do so much. Let's do that. Can you see me? That screen is. I know the screen for me is really small. But that's sort of the way the system is made up, and we'll carry you through the presentation. Anyway, so the first thing I really want you to understand is that we all know, and we've known for a very long time, that adherence to strength training is a problem. The thing that I've been talking to practitioners about now for a long time is really the magnitude of the problem. And probably the easiest example that I can give is an example that most practitioners can really identify with. Is you have a new client that comes in, and you're talking to them about the issue they're there for, whether it's fitness or whatever, it's injury, and if you're doing history, oftentimes the question gets asked that, what have you done for this in the past? And I think most of the people, I know I've had it multiple times throughout my career, and I think most of the people that I've talked to have had this, is that client then states, yeah, I saw somebody else for this problem, and it didn't help. The thing is, if that person has given them a bunch of stuff to do and they didn't do it and it didn't help, now this person is out there talking about you, because I can almost guarantee that all of us have people out there like that talking about you, that and they haven't done their stuff, and you're not there to defend yourself. So it's really important that when we capture, first of all, if somebody says that when they come in, it's like, yeah, I saw this other person and it didn't help, my now initial reaction is, okay, did you do everything that they told you to do? And you'd be surprised that people actually, when prompted, will admit, well, I mean, I did most of the stuff. And actually, in my part of my assessment, I do ask them percentage-wise how much of the professional advice they actually follow. because it's an important thing to ask. So your reputation, if you're allowing people to not do the stuff that you're asking them to do, it is affecting your reputation. So for those of you that don't know the stats, for every um, person that is talking negatively about you, and has some story of things that don't work, you need to even the playing ground, even the playing field. You need 9 to 10 people talking positively about you. And, and again, if it's in this situation where you're not there to defend yourself, even though you gave them a whole bunch of quality stuff to do and they didn't do it, there needs to be some accountability there. And I'm going to talk later on about how we can work to solve specifically that problem. The other things, we all got into this industry because we wanted to help people, and our sense of impact, when we know that the people aren't getting better the way they should be, and you're working really hard and you're doing everything you can do, but people aren't doing their stuff, it can get really frustrating. The next thing it affects, if either way, you're getting everybody to do all your stuff or they're not doing your stuff, it affects your value as a practitioner, because it's that ratio of, I remember one of the earliest instructors I ever had, Rene Pelletier, Joan, you would know who that is, obviously, said to our class, listen, you guys aren't magicians. You're not healing people. You're not gods. What the real game is, he said, 70% of the people that come to see you are going to get better just because they came. The difference between a good practitioner and a great practitioner is how many of the 30% you're getting better, and how much of an impact you want to have on those people. So your value is very much linked to that. The other things that changed massively for me when I really started attacking this problem head on and changing the paradigm with my clients is my schedule. So how many unique clients I see a month versus the average practitioner, and what my lifestyle is around that, and what my value is in proportion to that is radically different than when I started. So the typical practitioner is seeing 60 to 120 unique clients a month, and making decent salary out of that. I'm seeing at maximum 40 clients a year, unique clients a year, and making the same or more than most practitioners out there. So this can, when I say that we're attacking this head on, I mean, we're really going at it and making sure that we have a big impact on every client we have. And I'll show you the whole process that I go through and how I get there. So let's move on. All right. So my career path, again, my name's Greg Lothian. I am an athletic therapist and strength coach since 1995. And I have been coaching people for all kinds of different things, from injury to high performance to active daily living, for a very long time. And I'm not afraid of failure. I absolutely feel that failure is a necessity for growth. And when I look back at how I got to where I am now, it was really failing my way to success. I really tried to take some time to analyze, what I was doing in those times versus and what was working, and then how to transition and how to move on. So when I first started as a student in varsity, trying to get, athletes that were the same age as me, at the same sort of, they're the athletes, I'm just learning to work as an athletic therapist. So I was the friend guy, and being the friend exclusively, yes, it helps to build trust, but it's not the best way to motivate people to stick to the program. And over time in my early career in varsity, it was frustrating because, like, I had very little knowledge at that point. My knowledge base was growing. I was pretty good at what I did at that point for the stage I was at. But, if I could have got more people to do it, maybe it would have worked out better. And I think early in the career, you feel like, this imposter syndrome, or, am I having the impact that I need to have with these people? Could they get better faster? Because I was doing primarily early stage rehab then. And so, so it was a bit of, having to reorient myself. And then when I moved from varsity into private practice, um, all of a sudden the demographic changed, and you're going from driven athletes that have their own ideas that maybe aren't listening to what you're saying, to people that are just complacent about the whole thing. And then and this is still one of the things that I see very often is in our industry is, you do get complacent sometimes when you're in that environment, and you have to work hard not to be complacent. I moved out of private practice back into varsity, and to be honest, I became a bit of a tyrant in that environment because I was not going to tolerate people not doing it anymore. And it was effective, but it wasn't the best relationship building. And when I look back at that time, there were definitely things that I would change. It was what it was at the time. The environment that we were in, and but I learned a lot from that. When I moved to my private, the first rendition of my private training studio, we were running a high performance triathlon studio at the time. The thing that I finally realized there was it was this mix between being the friend, the tyrant, allowing them a little bit of space, holding them accountable, to really being a mentor. You have to be the mentor for them. And mentors aren't just, that I don't think a lot of us really want to, or from the people that I've talked to, and personally for myself, I don't want to be the source of motivation for people to train. And long term, it's really not good to be the source of motivation for people to train. You want to provide the end user with the tools to help them motivate themselves, help them increase the drive in themselves. And that's what mentors, coaches really do, and do well. You have to talk outside of just exercise. You got to talk sometimes about personal lives and struggles and all of the things that are holding them back, and provide them with the right information to increase their drive, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about moving from here. So for those of you that ever watched the movie Lucy, where she was progressing to use 100% of her brain, the when you look at it, what the possibilities are, when we go from people doing so the average, and I think I talk about this a little bit later, but it's appropriate here. The average person in a physiotherapy setting is doing about 35% of the exercises that they're prescribed. So it's a pretty big problem. But what becomes possible in our practices, even if we're in fitness or S&C, strength conditioning, high performance training, whatever, when you start going from 30 to 40% adherence, 60%, 80%, and what if, like, imagine that the possibility that 100% of the exercises you prescribe, people were doing and really diving into, the amount of impact, the amount of results that you could get, the amount of things that you could learn when you're like, because there's certainly times that we prescribe exercises that aren't effective. So, okay, you did them all, you came back, those weren't working, let's try something else, and let's record this whole thing going on. And then, over time, 100%, or even if it's 90 or 80% of the exercise you're prescribing are being done, then, you have a larger pool to draw from. It's like, well, these bunch of people did all of those exercises, why isn't it working for you? And the data pool becomes much deeper, and, can have a huge impact on the results and your professional reputation and your knowledge level. And, it's really like a pretty massive possibility there. So how do we get from, the whatever percentage we're at, again, industry specific, when we start talking about the fitness industry, in the health and fitness industry, even people that have signed up to do like a year-long research training program, by the third month, like 49 to 55% of already dropped off. And moving forward through the year, I mean, you can get to the end of the year where 500 people have signed up for this research training health program, and at the end of the year, you have 40, 50 people that are still stuck to the program. And it's really, so how do we get from those low adherence numbers to something that's really meaningful, something that's really powerful for our industry, or for our personal practices, and for our clients? So there's 3 phases, and that's why this presentation is actually done in 3 parts. Phase 1 is to build buy-in and trust. That's the first thing we need to do. Phase 2 is to build meaningful goals, which we'll talk in the next live stream. And then the third thing is to provide highly objective milestones between the start of their journey and those meaningful goals. So we're going to get into buy-in and trust, and I work very uniquely. This works very, very well. I can't, when I talk to practitioners about how my practice functions and the results that I can get with clients, and the adherence to the things that I'm telling them to do, it's very, very high. I'm in the 90s for adherence to strength, so or to all the exercises I prescribe. You don't need them all. You don't need to do all of these things, because it's really dependent on your practice style, where your clients are coming from, whether you're working at a clinic and you're just being handed clients, if you have employer expectations. There isn't, not everybody's in the scenario that I'm in. I'm self-employed. I'm a solo practitioner. I've been doing this for a very long time. I have control of my entire environment, and I can essentially create whatever I want to create, which is why I work this way, because I was very passionate about working like that. So what I want you to take from this is that is all the little elements that we go through. If you can pick one of those elements that we talk about, or that I talk about in the next little while, and apply it to your business, it can have a big impact. Just one of them will have a big impact on your business. And then you can revisit it and add another one, just like we would do with our clients. You're not going to give them 20 things at the same time. Try one thing, integrate it. All of them are very straightforward. They're very simple. And each one is going to have an impact, and you can just level up one at a time. So through this thing, take notes, ask questions. You have my contact information, or at least you can get a hold of us now. If you have questions, we can revisit this whole thing. So the first thing we need from our clients is oh, okay, this is, wow, I get it now. And I'm gonna repeat this later, because it's really, really important. And you'll see, in any case, what you really want your clients to say. And this is from Chris Voss. For those of you that read Never Split the Difference, excellent book. It definitely relevant to client relationships, although it's not written for that. It's written for contract negotiation, but very good book about understanding people. And one of the things that he said in that book that's really, really resonates with me, is if you have a client, you give them information, and they say to you that you're right. One of the things that Chris Voss will tell you is that you've done it all wrong, because you're right is giving the ownership away from the person who's saying it to whoever is feeding them the information. What we need our clients to say internally or verbally to you is, "That's right. That's that. Wow. Okay, I get it. Yes, that's right. This is the answer. This is where we need to get people to this get people to." So my process, like I said, you can pick the best steps for you. I have I have a vetting process to get people in, and then I have this whole process that I use to make sure that that people are really engaged and ready to do everything they need to do to work with me. So starts with a pre-qualification. Well, we'll talk about exactly what that is. An initial consultation, um, an annual contract. So I work by annual contract. I do not count appointments. I stopped counting appointments years ago, and I always get the question, "Oh, what if people abuse it, or come more often, or whatever?" You're the professional. They're going based on my recommendation of what they should be doing. So that doesn't happen. But at the same time, I charge them for the year, and we just do everything we need to do to get them where they need to go. And there's also the discussion often that I have with practitioners about, well, that makes it a lot more expensive. It's like, okay, but what kind of impact are you trying to have on your clients? And would you rather have a small impact on a whole bunch of people, or a massive impact on a few people? So really how you want to orient your business. So for me, I would much rather have a massive impact on a few people than the opposite. So that's why I orient my business that way. I also provide a guarantee. This is something that our industry seems to be allergic to. But if you think about it, um, my guarantees, the way my guarantee is worded, is if you do everything that I tell you to do and you don't get the results that we're expecting, then I'll just give you your money back. Because obviously it's me the problem. You're doing everything that I'm telling you to do, then why should they pay me? You know? And we all know that if you're conscious about the exercises that you're prescribing and you do a good evaluation, you understand your client, there's virtually no possibility that they don't get better. Because if everybody's doing their job and you understand what you're doing, then it's going to happen. So, and how many people I've had people ask to terminate their contracts, but it wasn't for any other reason than something severe medical came up and needed to stop. Perfect. And one guy move out of the country. Okay. But I've never had somebody go back and say, okay, you know what? I've done all the work you've told me to do, and I'm not getting better. Actually, the early rendition of this in my earlier career is if, I knew that I still had a lot to learn. So if I had a client that I was working with, and after I think it was 3 or 5 sessions, it was a bunch of years ago, 3 sessions, there was no improvement at all. And I was doing manual therapy stuff back then and early stage rehab. I stopped charging them. And if I went another 2 or 3 sessions and there was still nothing, then the not getting paid for the session and being cognizant that they're not getting better prompted me to refer out and to find out the answer and to educate. It boosted the drive in me to be able to find the answer for people. So I think the accountability in our industry right now is, oh, the client's not doing our stuff. Well, what about us? Because body's complicated, it's hard to understand. We do everything we can, but if we're not helping people, should they be paying us? So for me, I just simplify the whole thing. In the first 3 months, if things aren't going well, you're doing everything I'm saying, but it's just not working, I'm obviously the problem. I'll give you your money back and give you a referral. What also comes with that is objective assessments. So for the longest time, up until just very recently when we started working on Acculete and we started working on a force dynamometer that that I use on a regular basis now. Um, we didn't have objective assessments. So to show people incremental progress became more and more difficult. And even when I was early in my career, and there's a lot of people out there right now, and maybe you're one of them, there is a force dynamometer in the clinic, but this is like $2,000 machine that nobody uses because it's hidden away in a drawer somewhere. Because if you can't do an objective assessment with every single client, or an objective reassessment with every single client, then you won't do it with any of them, because you can't be that inconsistent. And oftentimes, because force dynamometers are ridiculously expensive, which is why we started Acculete in the first place, is to bring the cost of those things down, is if you typically a clinic will buy one and there's like 4 practitioners there, or you have some tracking devices that only the elite athletes have access to. Well, okay, I'm not going to use it just part-time. If I'm a true practitioner, I want to use it with everybody. So having an objective assessment is hugely important. Okay, so this is the meat of the program. And I'm going to talk you through exactly what I do with all of these steps. So a pre-qualification. You want to vet your clients. I learned to vet my clients years ago, and man, what a difference this makes in your practice. So you get a referral. You get a referral from whatever source it is. And now, if you're working in a clinical environment and it's just, well, I have a new client on my list, maybe you can't do this one. But think about it. Think about, your future career, or think about, having this in place as early as possible. It's a really powerful tool. First of all, for building reciprocity with your client, one of the earliest things you want to build with your client is reciprocity. Give first. There's so much talk right now about give first. Well, give the thing that you can't get back. The definition of true generosity: time. So I get the referral from whatever source it comes from. And whether it's an email or a text or something like that, I'll message them back. Hey, that's, great to hear from you. Thanks for the referral to whoever. Let's get on the phone for 15 minutes. And I just want to catch up to find out what's going on. So first of all, right there, the client is like, I'm sorry, what? You want to get on the phone? Nobody has, I can't tell you how many clients have told me in the last, whatever it is, 8 years, 10 years that I've been working like this. Nobody's ever done that for me. Nobody's ever gotten on the phone with them and been like, okay, hey, you know what? Yeah, great to talk to you. What's the challenge you're facing right now? And let them talk. Let them talk about the whole thing that's going on. First of all, it gives you some insight to what their personality type is like. I've had some people that have been reluctant to talk, and you get an indication as to how it's going to be to work with this person, and you get a really good because they're not really expecting this, and they start talking about what the challenges are. Well, I sprained my ankle, and then I can't do this, and they spew out a whole bunch of information, and for me, I piece it together. Okay, it makes a lot of sense what you're talking about. And there are plenty of times that I need to lose weight, and I need to do this, and I need that. It's like, that's okay. I completely understand your problem, and I'm not the person you need to talk to. So in my network of professionals that are connected to me, I have people I refer to that I know and trust, and say, like, listen, the first thing you need to do. So for early stage rehab, for example, it's like, oh, I just got out of surgery, and I need to see somebody right away. Okay, well, Jennifer, who is in the clinic that's not far from me, does early stage rehab. And, and she's great. She's wonderful. She does an amazing job. And when you get through that process, if you're still looking to get back to performance, active living, whatever it is, then give me a shout. And, they really appreciate that, because one of the hardest things, as even as a practitioner, is like, my cousin called me from Calgary once. It was like, do you know any good practitioners? Like, in Calgary? I don't know. I was like, okay, but so I'll do some research for you because I know the industry. And even for me, it was difficult to disseminate. It's like, who's good and who's doing full biomechanical assessments, which is what she needed. And, it can be really difficult. So anybody who's reaching out to any of us as practitioners, we leverage your network to help these people out as much as you can, even if it's not appropriate to work with you, especially if it's not. The other thing I do in the 15 minutes is I explain in a decent amount of detail what my process is. So, we go through resolving, whatever latent injury issues you're dealing with, do a full biomechanical assessment. We talk about mindsets. We talk about a variety of different things. It's a 12-month program, and the program cost is this. And it's really important that you get that information out in this pre-qualification, because the next step is them coming to see you. You don't want them surprised about what the cost of the program is, or what the commitment level is. You want them to fully understand it. And the people that are really driven to change, they're looking for a 12-month program. They're looking for not just the injury rehab, but they want to get back into active living, or they want to do some performance stuff as well. It makes a lot of sense to them. And when I tell them the cost of the program and what the possibilities are to pay for it, then they're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. They still got some questions though. So I ask them, does it make sense to go to the next step, which is still not charging them for anything. The next step that I do, that I think that everybody should do in our industry, in every industry for that matter, it's a free consultation. Because it's really like, you're picking anything. You're picking a lawyer, you're picking whoever. You've never met this person before. You don't know what they're like. You don't know what their voice sounds like. You have no idea if you identify with them. You're picking maybe you're going to counseling and you don't know what this person, what their personality is like. At least get a chance to talk to this person once. And again, so I go from this pre-qualification to a free consultation. They're like, oh, in person? Like, yeah, so I want you to come by and we'll sit for half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever. And I tell them, I want to see the nature of the problem that you're talking about. Make sure, confirm that this is, that it is appropriate for me to help you and it's not somebody else. And I want you to get a chance to meet me, see the space that we're working in, make sure this all makes sense. And, the people that are just like, wow, I've never had this before in our industry, especially, late stage injury rehab, which is typically what I do. So it gives them a chance, gives you a chance to vet your clients better, and it gives them a chance to vet you. The other thing is, so you find out, it'll give you a really good indication of what the true issue is, because very often on the phone, it's like, oh, it's this, that, whatever, but they're getting partial information from lots of different sources, right? So it's, they don't understand the human body the way we do, or they don't understand nutrition the way you do, or they don't understand a lot of different things, right? So now you bring them in, you talk to them, and you get into more detail and find out what the true issue is. And then again, it's another opportunity to support your networks. Like, well, this isn't, and I've gotten to that point where the people have come in, we've sat and we've talked about it, and I'm like, you know what, really, it's too early for me. You need more hands-on more often than what I do, my work style. So, I need you to go see this person, and they appreciate that just as much, So find the true nature of the problem, support your network, explore the magnitude with them of the problem. So just like I did with you guys right at the beginning of this presentation, like the magnitude of the adherence to strength training problem it's big. Well, the magnitude of the problem that people are coming with, they're coming with back pain, latent back pain, hip pain, shoulder pain, whatever, stuff that's lasted for years and years and years. Like, okay, how long have you had this? Years. What have you tried to do for this? Lots. I've seen everybody. Okay, how motivated are you to actually change this? Like, and do you understand how much work it's going to be to change this, to address this? One of the questions that I ask, excuse me, I'm just about to sneeze, so remind me if I sneeze, is I'll ask, if they understand what's involved in all of the aspects that are going to be involved in getting to where they want to get to. And I lost my train of thought there. There was something else, but I'll get back to it. But there is one very specific question that is a cutoff for me, for clients, whether they get in or not. And this has a huge impact on their future adherence and accountability. And it's a simple question. It's on a scale from 1 to 10. If 1 was you change nothing about your life, 8 is you would make significant changes to your life, and 10 is you would, quit jobs, change countries, get divorced to solve this problem. Where are you? Where are you at? If now the initial answer isn't necessarily the indicator, but if they don't answer an 8 and above, you shouldn't take these clients because they're just not going to do the stuff. Now, there's definitely people that answer it's like a 6. Okay, but that could be skepticism. So let's assume for a second that we can achieve what we really want to achieve with the stuff that I'm doing. Where would you be then? And if they're an 8 and above, or I might ask them, what would get you to an 8 and above? And the funniest story was I got a referral from my mom from this guy, for this guy, and he said nothing would get him past a 6. And I was like, okay, that's totally legit. There's no wrong answer. And here's who I want you to go see. And I got a text message within an hour saying, you fired my friend. And I didn't actually, but it was a funny story. Sorry, just hold on 1 second. Oh, it's tickling my nose there. Okay. So really good question to ask. And so looking into the future, when somebody maybe doesn't do their exercises or hasn't stuck to the program, it's an easy conversation to say, so when we first met and you said that you were an 8 on 10, you were a 9 on 10, you were a 10 on 10 as to solving this problem, and you're now not sort of holding your end up of the deal, what's going on? And I've had that conversation before, and you're absolutely right. I got lost in the things that I was doing, life got ahead of me, whatever. Okay, I understand, but we need to get back and get the wheels back on the track. Part 3. So this is the biggest impact that Acculete is having on the industry now, and it's going to be an absolute industry changer. And it's been a passion of mine to create this we've been working on this for a few years now, and it's been really the most meaningful change in my business. And I think going to be the most meaningful change in businesses for physical health practitioners, whether you're a personal trainer, kinesiologist, chiropractor, physiotherapist, athletic therapist, if you're helping people with get better physically, this is what we need to be doing. We do these assessments, and we have this base of knowledge when we do the assessments, and the assessments are meaningful to us. And what I realized over time was they aren't meaningful to the end user. The end user with very little knowledge, and that can be a high performance athlete who has been training for years and years and years, still does not have the knowledge that we have when it comes to figuring out people's problems. So, and whether that's for injury or for fitness. I don't know why this is happening all of a sudden. Just give me one sec. All right. I'm getting a cold right in the middle of the stream. Anyway, so doing an assessment that our clients fully understand is massively important. And I can't tell you the difference that it makes. When I started, we built a prototype for our force dynamometer and started using it more often. Immediately, an immediate difference in the buy-in from our clients. So the trust part is all relationship and okay, you seem like you know what you're doing, whatever. Buy-in is not that. Buy-in is I do an assessment and I show them without ever having to explain, what's going on, and they can look at it and go like, oh, yeah, I need to work on that. So, and we'll talk about the different phases in a second. But when we go to measure things with people, and we can measure, so let's say we start with an injury, and we're in the physiotherapy end of things right now, and they whatever, they've injured elbow or they've whatever had surgery and for their torn bicep or whatever. Okay. Our traditional assessments are like, yeah, you got weakness. Yeah, I got weakness. I tore my bicep. But what if we could measure that and say okay, pain gets triggered when you generate 8 pounds of force. Oh, okay, that doesn't seem like a lot. No, it's not a lot. Just in doing that, if you just do that alone, and then you're going through the rehab process, and okay, now pain triggers at 12 pounds. You think they would pick that up if we weren't measuring it objectively? No. The answer is no, they wouldn't, because it's not, especially if it's weeks apart. It's like, I don't know, it still feels weak. 12 pounds, if somebody that could normally generate 30 or 40 pounds of force, they're not really going to notice that. But as soon as we start marking these things down, and then, so we could measure the force in one repetition, and we can measure the amount of force they could generate and when it starts to drop off in a set. So, so I do these tests now when they're appropriate is, okay, stick to the bicep thing because it's easy to demonstrate. We do bicep curls. And I get a little bit of pain. I can generate about 8 pounds of force. Well, how many times can you do that? So what we did with our force dynamometer is we had it record every repetition, so that now it just gives us a number for the amount of force that we generate over time. And again, it was sort of this epiphany for us, because now from the client's point of view, I could say okay, you could generate 8 pounds of force, and now you can generate 12, but your force capacity generation was at the beginning was 55 pounds, and because we're doing it over repetitions, now it's the magnitude of the difference is going to really show to the client. So it's like, oh, you're at 55 pounds of total force that you could generate in one set, and now you're at 120. It's like, whoa, okay, that's a big difference. And it's when you demonstrate this stuff to the clients, they'll sorry, this is driving me crazy. Sorry. Anyway, when you show numbers like that, so we did a bunch of pilot projects with physiotherapists and kinesiologists and whatever, and as soon as you could show with numbers that level of improvement, or measuring injured versus uninjured and showing that, we had one, it was a great example. We got this exact example back from almost every physiotherapist that we lent it to. But this one lady had torn her hamstring, and she was ready to self-discharge. A fairly sedentary lifestyle. She had torn her hamstring at work, slipped on something, and come for a few sessions, and was like, okay, well, I'm going to stop therapy. And the therapist that we had just happened to lend the device to earlier that week to test out said, well, wait a second, you're not like anywhere near ready, and went to our standard test. Well, let's test it manually. Okay, you can see you're a lot weaker on this side than you are on that side. And she says, yeah, but I think it'll even out, it'll be okay, whatever. And then he grabs the force dynamometer, he grabs the Acculete that we created, and does a one repetition force test, and sees that she can generate 17 pounds of force on the injured leg and 50 pounds of force on the uninjured leg. And said nothing to the client except for showed her that. And her reaction was, oh, well, maybe I should continue. And if we can reflect that out into a force capacity test, which he didn't do at that time, but could have, and the numbers would be even bigger. And it was like, well, now they're seeing the magnitude of the problem. The client's really understanding what's going on. So, and then from that, let's say we do a force capacity test on the good arm and a force capacity test on the injured arm. Well, now it's like, talk about like reportability to the client itself. It's like, okay, well, your force generation capacity on this side is 1,000 pounds, and right now you're at 200. Okay, this is where we go. Next, couple of weeks, oh, you're at 300. Maybe you do some neuro stuff, and same day it goes from 300 to 350 or 400. Or maybe you're dealing with, which I dealt a lot with in the past, a coach who's coming in and saying, what's going on with this athlete? They're getting better, and it's slow, and it's this, that, whatever, and everything seems very arbitrary to a coach that's very impatient and wants the player back on and working right now. Now they come in and say, okay, what's going on with this athlete? Well, their force capacity expectation is 2,500 pounds, and they're at 1,200. Okay, I see. That's where we're at. And they come back the next week. Where are we at? We're at 1,900. Okay, we're getting close. Perfect, good. Hold them back until they're at 2,200. And we can have meaningful conversations with the people that it really matters with. So having the capacity to do that is huge. And then we talk, past injury. It's easy to talk in the injury rehab world, but what I'm going to show you for me is sort of a driver, and you get to see sort of where I pick my clients and why this reconditioning timeline to me should be more prevalent in our industry. I keep disappearing. Sorry. Reconditioning timeline. If you're going to share something with a lot of people that are in our industry, other physical health practitioners, this is a great one to share. So if we look at the timeline, and this timeline is from this end, that end. I don't know which way I'm looking there, which way you see me, but at one end is injury, like severe injury. So the end of the timeline is like debilitating injury. They're not moving. It's really bad shape. And the other end of the timeline is the ultimate peak of high performance training. We can all agree that all of us are somewhere along this timeline, right? And if you're not, there's something very, very wrong. These two lines for me, the first one indicates when people are about 80% rehabbed, and sometimes it's much less than that, but the sort of average out is 80% rehab. When somebody's 80% rehabbed in the injury setting, it starts getting difficult for them to justify continuing to pay for physiotherapy or for manual treatment, stuff like that, because they're feeling pretty good, but they still have this latent injury, right? And the other line is, for me, the minimum requirement for people to really embark independently into fitness. And what's happening in our world very, very often is people are doing, they are at one place in this timeline, and they are doing things that are appropriate for a different place in this timeline. Especially, they have latent injuries and they're attempting fitness. They're going, to whatever these classes, that maybe they're going to a high impact thing. And what happens? Inevitably, they get re-injured and kicked back down below that 80% line. And this process, we see it all the time. So understanding what this process actually is really important to what we're going to measure and how we're going to motivate people. Helping people understand this itself is really important as well. So between the 80% and the fitness line is what I call the reconditioning zone, where we're reconditioning people from that point to get them ready for fitness. And it's where I work primarily. So the first part is P3 is phase 3 rehab. So get rid of those latent injuries and return, as much as possible, normal function to whatever area was injured, right? So that's the first thing that I need to do. Second thing is measure people's imbalances, find out what they are, and correct them. They could be imbalances. We'll talk about that in a second, exactly what that means. But measuring imbalance is the second one. The next one is teaching them dissociation or control. So postural control. Postural control under stress is how I look at it. The third one, the fourth one is building some sort of biomechanical stability. And that's very meshed with building an athletic platform as well. So we're building biomechanical stability. We're building that stability into an active platform to do squatting or lifting or pushing or pulling or whatever. And this is the process that my clients go through to make sure that we're getting from that 80% to the fitness. And when they ask me, like I had a client ask me today, it's like, oh, I want to join this class and do that. You understand what's going on, that you're at an appropriate phase to start that, go ahead, or no, we haven't built this yet, and I'm concerned that you're going to get injured because you don't have this in place, and it becomes an easier question to answer. And what's really interesting about this, this timeline that honestly I just made up, is where the larger part of the population is. So when we, early in my career, it's like you're either doing injury rehab or you're doing high performance training, and it's this. We want to work with these people, but it's not where everybody is, and there are a ton of active people that are like, they really want to live active lives and they want to get back into it. They're fun to work with. They're driven. They're all these things. And the majority of them, there's a ton of people with latent injuries, and there's a ton of people with dissociation problems and imbalances, and biomechanical instabilities, and don't have proper athletic platforms. I mean, it's the majority of the population. And so that there is a huge amount of people that we can work at here and motivate and keep moving. So what I really want to go through is like, okay, so to getting people from 80 to 100%. That's where this the force capacity measurement really comes in, because when you're going to keep them motivated and them engaged and them wanting to adhere to the program, we need to be able to show them, it's like, here is your latency. This is where you're still at. So if they show up in my business and I measure their ability to push on one side, their ability to push on the other side, and there's a marked difference. So I had one guy, we were testing hamstring capacity, and his one-time capacity in what we had set up was 35 pounds, the way we had it set up, and the capacity on the other leg for one repetition was 30. Okay, it's a bit of a difference, even for me as a practitioner. Okay, whatever, So we did a force capacity test with him, and the force capacity test showed that his leg, that he could generate 30 pounds of force. His force generation capacity was 450. and his leg that he could do 35 pounds of force with, his capacity generation was 650. And I was like, whoa, these are wildly different, like what's going on? And he stands up and says, oh, yeah, that's true. 2 years ago, hadn't mentioned this to me because this is not what he came for originally. And he'd forgotten about it when we did our eval. He had torn his hamstring. And it's like, oh. And then he says to me, like, whoa, I need to work this. I need to fix this. And so I had been demonstrating the exercise. We were just setting his force capacity for his exercises, which is how I prescribe, by the way. So not using sets and repetitions anymore. We use force, ability to generate force, and then what the force capacity is. So that's another game changer we're going to talk about in another live stream. But I just happened across it, and then he became really motivated to even this out and to train and to fix the problem. So that was huge. So getting rid of those latent injuries, we can see those latent injuries if we're measuring them properly. Correcting imbalances, so left versus right, anterior chain versus posterior chain, quad and ham, or at least flexion extension ratios. We can go into, there are a ton of different things we can do, and if we're measuring one-time force and force generation capacity, we can really highlight what those issues are, show our clients so that the drive is in them to fix it, and then work on that. And then the other one for me, and moving forward, correcting imbalance is highly linked to as well that biomechanical stability. We start measuring at the earliest stage of biomechanical stability is, core strength, which are typically things that we have never been able to measure before, that we actually have the capacity to measure now. So, improving dissociation. So that's the next phase after imbalance. Is really, a lot of this meshes a little bit together, obviously, but improving dissociation. So dissociative control. So can you move this part without moving the other part? And these things are really important for managing back posture and all of these types of things, right? The biggest problem in our industry for doing that, you can move that part now. Let's go do some Olympic lifting. That's not how it works. You have control over that. Okay, let's put you under a measured amount of stress and see if you still have control over that. And the number one example that's easy to see, I use a slightly different method now so that I can get a true measurement from it. But if you want to just do a really quick test with people, is put them in a bear crawl position or just a 4-point position, hands and knees, and see if they can dissociate just their lower back. To place it in a good neutral spine position, find it without moving anything else. First of all, most of the people you're going to work with cannot do that. But even if they can, okay, you can do that. Oh, that's great. Now put them in a plank and ask them to do it again. And I haven't seen anybody, short of somebody who was really trained before to do this, be able to jump straight into a plank or a bear crawl position and still have control, dissociative control over the neutral spine position or thoracic spine position or whatever. So we need to be training dissociation under increasing stress. What becomes interesting here is these typical dissociation exercises are like people. I remember my brother, I gave him one once, and he was in Vancouver, and I was like, you need to do these because he was having back pain, and he came back to me and said, yeah, I can't do that exercise. I was like, what do you mean you can't do that exercise? Because I train at the gym and it's embarrassing, He was like, yeah, I know it's a stupid little drill, but like whatever, like he wanted to go in there and push weights around and stuff like that. It's like, okay, as soon as we link numbers to this stuff, as soon as we make it like that, it's more work and it's something that's really tangible, all of a sudden it becomes interesting to them. It's like, okay, you have control of that. Now I want you to stand up, and we do, it's like a standing plank. So, like a resistance band, pulling them backwards and having to stand straight and still have dissociative control. Now we have a measurement for it, and they step forward and measure it, and they have something to work towards, and this has been amazing for going from that through, like, because all of these biomechanical stability, dissociation, all that, they're very highly linked together, right? And for those of you that are working on neurological drives, like, okay, you do this little drill and see if they have control of that. Okay, now see if they have control of that under stress, which is going to be more realistic to what they're doing, right? So that's a really cool one. And then, but like true biomechanical stability, one of the things that I do now is I measure their ability to maintain posture, and dissociative control, and control their imbalances, like, if they had a postural imbalance, to get them straight and hold themselves straight and all that under stress. So under stress in all kinds of different directions. We'll do rotational stress, we'll do side stress, lateral stress, we'll do transversal stress, like, and make sure that as we're building a platform that we can see where these numbers are at. And so now very often I'm getting the questions like, well, what number should we be at? It's like, well, we haven't been measuring this long enough to know. I did have somebody where we were measuring rotational stress, thoracical, she was having rib pain issues, and we found that she had her thoracic spine was really unstable at a section. So I set her up in, it's a torque bar drill, which we can get into at some other point if you have questions about it, but it was basically rotational stress. And her ability to maintain her posture under rotational stress on the one side, 4 pounds. I had no metrics ahead of this to tell you whether that was good or wasn't good, but I think we can all agree that's probably not good. And, and when I measured the other side, her full capacity to maintain to maintain her posture was 8 pounds. And I was like, well, so right from there, right, just from that isometric hold, I can tell you that not only is it wildly not strong enough, but it's also 100% different. So, and I showed that to her, and she was like, oh, I really need to work on this. Yeah, you probably really want to work on it. So we're getting near the end. I know it's a lot of information I'm dumping on you. And feel free, like I said, the questions later. But I'm going to revisit this thing that we talked about at the beginning. How do you know if the information you've translated to this person is the right information? And I can't emphasize enough that the drive is externalized if they say to you, you are right. We can't, if somebody ever says that to me, okay, let's stop. We need to maybe highlight some more of the objective stuff. We need to, have a better conversation about what's going on, what the magnitude of the problem is, buy-in, trust, skepticism, whatever it is. But we need to get them to internalize their drive by saying that is right, where they own it. So really make sure that that's one of the things that you're bringing to your clients. So that wraps up part one, which is building trust and buy-in, and it's made a huge difference to my practice. Like I said, I've gone from having to see, 60, 80, 100 unique clients a month to seeing, 20 to 40 a year, and having a massive impact on these people. So it's a pretty big difference in my ability to work with these people and have the lifestyle I want and have the impact that I want. The next thing that we need to do, that our industry really, we talk about it a lot, but we really need to get it right, is setting meaningful goals. And by meaningful, they're meaningful to the end user, not to us. And so there's a lot of stuff that I've gone through, a lot of, training in the psychological world to figure out like, okay, what are these, besides just SMART goals and this, that, SMART goals are great. They're don't get me wrong, but there's a bunch of other stuff that you can be doing that really build internal drive, and internal locus of control with your clients, and and makes a big difference in the practice. So our next live stream, you'll if you've registered, you'll get the emails for what the date and time is, and have access to the recording if you don't have that. So if you have comments or questions, I know we're over an hour and 10 minutes. Feel free to, you can ask them now. I can stick around, and or email them to me. Email your questions to me. I'd love to hear them. I'd also love to hear the comments about, like, what you thought of the process itself, what you thought of the information, how it came across, how you integrate it into your business. And when you did integrate it, if you had any issues, problems integrating it, and if we can help that way, and then what kind of impact it had. So that would be super amazing to see. And you feel free to contact us. And for now, I will thank you very much for your time and for being here. This is our first live stream of many, and and this is a big step for us to get online and to really help as many physical health practitioners as possible build businesses that they truly are proud of. So thank you, and we will see you soon.